Okay, so in order to be in a position vector, right, which we drew before, it has to be at the origin as its originating initial point, right? But the problem is real vectors aren't at the zero of a coordinate essentially. They usually have two coordinates that are not at the origin. So the problem with that is I can't make an equation for the vector if it's in the original position. If I put in position vector, then I can use the ijk delineation for the vector essentially. Okay, so let's say I have 2 points. Point 1 is at 3, -1, and point 2 is at -2, 5. Neither one of those is the origin, so I can't write an equation for that vector. So I want to put it into the origin, so the origin's right here. So you notice this vector is the same as this vector as far as magnitude and direction, except this one is the original, right? This is the original, right? Which has no equation, but the new one does. The question is, how do I get that vector equation? Well, if you read up here, it's given with the vector initial point and the terminal point, basically. So if we do this mathematically, okay, there's the wrong way to do it, which is initial minus terminal. Okay, if I do that, I'm going to get v equals, right? We'll just set this to style 2, which is vector. And let me put this in the middle for now. Okay, so if I do this incorrectly, right, I want to do parentheses I plus parentheses j. Oops. Okay, we'll set the styles here. Okay, so if I do this incorrectly, and I do initial minus terminal, right? So the initial point is this one here, right? This is the initial point, and this is the terminal point. Okay, so if I do it incorrectly, this would be 3 minus -2, and then this one would be -1 minus 5, right? So that would give me an answer of 5i, and let's see, what would this be? Minus 6j. Okay, which is wrong. Okay, which is why I put incorrect, because that would be 5, -6. That would be down here. That is the opposite direction of what you're supposed to be doing, right? So don't do that. I see that all the time because people don't check the visuals on it. So if I copy this and I put correct way of doing it, right? It's terminal minus initial. That's the correct way of doing it. So if I switch this around, right, it'll be -2 minus 3, correct? And then 5 minus the -1. Right, that would be the correct way to do it. Alright, so if I copy and paste, I'm going to get -5, right? And that's going to be what? +6. Format color orange. And you notice this one matches up with what we have here, correct? Which is the actual correct position vector. Alright, let's try one more here. So I'm going to copy the correct one because we don't care about the incorrect one, and go down to here and paste it. Alright, so if I do this correctly and I do terminal minus initial, right, this is going to be 5 minus -1 and 2 minus 3. Okay, so that gives us what? 6, and that's going to be what? -1. Okay, all right. You probably don't need to write the 1, but either way it works out. Okay, so if I draw this, right? -1, 3, -1, 3 is this point here. That's my initial point. My terminal point is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2. So there is my regular vector, which doesn't have an equation. So my new one starts at 0, 0 and goes to 6, -1, right? So this is the same vector, but now it's in standard position essentially, right? So it actually works out pretty nice. Okay. Okay. All right, let's do some mathematical calculations algebraically. Right, so basically addition subtraction works the way you think it should, with just simply adding the x values and y values together, right? Whereas scalar multiple is only multiplying by the a and the b values essentially. Okay, so if we go through and do some calculations here, so we do v plus w, right? We're going to need the v value, right? So there's my v value, copy. So equals parentheses, there's the v value, plus parentheses, we're going to put in the w value now. So copy that. There we go. Make that blue, so format color blue. Alright, so order of operations, the parenthesis operation first, so there's nothing to happen there with the plus, that just stays the way it is, right? It just drops off. Oops. Okay, so at that point you can just combine the values, right? So essentially you can rearrange them if you want to. So you get the plus there and the -9 there, correct? Okay, so the result being, if I do, that'd be what, 11, right? Whoops. That'd be 11i, right? Why is it doing that? That's weird. Style, math. There we go. 11i, right? And then minus 5j. Okay. Alright, so what would happen if it's subtraction? What would actually change? Okay, well, let's go over to here and try that out. Well, if it's a minus case, right, we'll do minus and minus. So this would stay the same, but this would be minus and plus when we distribute, right? So this would be minus and plus here, correct? So that would change it to a, what, -1 here, right? Style math, get rid of that. And that's going to be, what, plus 13? Okay, so -1i plus 13j, essentially. Okay, next couple, we'll try some scalars. What about 6v? Okay, so we'll copy that, paste that there, right, equals 6 times, this is going to be style math, right? Okay, so we're going to get the v. Here's the v here. We're going to copy that, copy, and paste. Okay, format color blue. Alright, so it just goes into each one essentially. So I get equals this. I can copy this, right? Copy, paste. So this is 6 times this, and then 6 times this. So a final answer of 30 here, right? And 24 here. There we go. Alright, what about -5w? Okay. So equals -5 times the w, right? We'll make sure this is math. We'll go get the W value. There we go. Okay, so what do we get? We get this vector times -5, right? So copy, paste. So -5 times this one, and -5 times this one. Okay. So what does that give me? Copy and paste. That's going to give me -30i plus 45j, right? Format color blue. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Change that to I don't know what happened there. Let's copy them, I guess. And make this orange. Okay, good deal. All right, so the one I tend to see a lot of mistakes on is when you have multiple operations, because people forget the order of operations is still a thing. Okay, so style math. All right, so we have 4v minus 2w. Okay, so let's go get v and w. So if I get v, there's v. And here's w. Okay, so what I mean by this is follow the order of operations. So multiplication is going to come before addition, right? So this is going to give me what? If I multiply by 4, I'm going to get 20i, right? 20i and 16j, correct? And then here, I'm going to get minus 12i and then plus 18j, correct? So the result, so I have 20 minus 12 is going to be 8i, right? 8i. And then 16 plus 18 is 34j. Okay, so that's how you do vector operations algebraically.